The crystalline spires of the Galactic Council station loomed before the human vessel like frozen lightning bolts against the backdrop of space. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her diplomatic attaché quietly adjusting her formal uniform behind her. 20 years of diplomatic service hadn't prepared her for this moment. Humanity's first official contact with the Galactic Council. Final approach cleared, Ambassador, the ship's AI announced. Council Station Control reports all protocols are in order. Sarah nodded, watching as their ship glided toward a docking port that seemed to bloom like a mechanical flower. The station's scale was staggering, a construct larger than Earth's moon, housing representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations. Humanity was about to become the 304th, or so she thought. The first sign that something was wrong came during the decontamination procedure. The alien technicians, tall, willowy beings with iridescent scales, kept their distance, multiple sets of eyes fixed on the human delegation with an unsettling intensity. Their translators chittered with encrypted frequencies that Sarah's neural interface couldn't decode, but their body language screamed anxiety. "They're afraid," whispered Dr. Marcus Wong, her xenobiologist advisor. Not the usual first contact caution. "This is different." Sarah had noticed. She'd spent months studying council species behavioral patterns, and this went beyond standard xenophobic responses. The technicians moved like prey animals in the presence of a predator. The delegation was escorted through vast corridors of living metal and pulsing light. Each step brought new strangeness and new fears. Alien diplomats from a dozen worlds scattered at their approach, abandoning formal gathering spaces. Guards materialized at every intersection, their weapons not quite pointed at the humans, but not quite pointed away either. Ambassador Chen. A melodious voice cut through her thoughts. A being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix floated toward them. "I am Sathor, Chief Elder of the Council. We must speak. Privately. Now." Sarah's neural interface flashed warnings. This violated every protocol in the First Contact Handbook. Chief Elders never met with new species directly, let alone immediately. Something was terribly wrong. "Chief Elder, while I'm honored, perhaps we should. There is no time for diplomatic niceties, child." Sathor's energy form pulsed with urgency. "What I must tell you will change everything your species believes about itself. Follow me." The elder led them to a secure chamber deep within the station. The walls shifted, becoming transparent and revealing the vast starfield beyond. Sarah's delegation was dismissed despite her protests, leaving her alone with one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "You humans have a saying," Sathor began, his energy form dimming to a soft glow. "God made man in his image. But what if I told you it wasn't God who made humanity? What if I told you that you were engineered for a specific purpose by beings who saw a war coming that would threaten all life in the galaxy?" Sarah's diplomatic mask cracked. "I don't understand. 300,000 years ago, a species we call the predecessors looked into the future and saw annihilation coming. They needed to create the perfect warriors, beings of unparalleled adaptability, creativity, and combat potential. They chose a promising primate species on a world called Earth." The chamber filled with holographic images, ancient star maps, genetic sequences, and construction platforms surrounding a familiar blue planet. Sarah's legs went weak as the implications hit her. "The reason every species on this station fears you," Sathor continued, "is because they recognize what you are, what you were made to be. You humans aren't just another spacefaring race joining the galactic community. You're living weapons created by the most advanced civilization we've ever known." Sarah stared at the holographic evidence of humanity's true origins, her diplomatic training deserting her. "Why are you telling me this now?" Sathor's energy form flared with what might have been fear. "Because the war the predecessors foresaw. It's finally arriving. And you, Ambassador Chen, need to prepare your species for its true purpose. Humanity is about to become what it was engineered to be. the galaxy's last hope for survival. The chamber darkened as distant sensor arrays detected the first signs of something massive approaching from the galactic rim. Humanity's moment of revelation had arrived, and with it, the beginning of a war they were quite literally born to fight. The holographic chamber hummed with ancient data, streams of light coalescing into images that rewrote human history with each passing second. Sarah Chen watched, transfixed, as three-dimensional star charts showed Earth as it existed 300,000 years ago. Massive construction platforms orbited the planet like artificial moons, their purpose now horrifyingly clear. The predecessors chose Earth for its isolation. Dathor explained, his energy form pulsing with each word. They needed a laboratory far from prying eyes, where they could perfect their ultimate creation. The hologram shifted, showing beings that looked almost crystalline in nature, their forms both beautiful and alien. They moved with precise grace as they worked in massive genetic laboratories. Sarah recognized the double helix of DNA being manipulated, twisted, and enhanced. Your species calls them missing links. Dathor continued. Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, each was a step in their grand design. Every iteration brought them closer to their goal, the perfect adaptive combat species. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. You're telling me every step of human evolution was engineered, that none of it was natural. Natural. Dathor's form flickered with what might have been amusement. The predecessors worked with evolution, Ambassador. They didn't replace it. They guided it, enhanced it. Your ability to run long distances, to throw with precision, to problem solve in combat situations, all carefully cultivated traits. The hologram showed early humans hunting, fighting, surviving. Each scene was accompanied by streams of data, genetic markers highlighted and annotated in the predecessor's complex language. But why? Sarah demanded. Why create a species for war? What enemy could be so terrible? Dathor's response was interrupted by a sudden alarm. The chamber's displays flickered, showing a massive energy surge at the galaxy's edge. The chief elder's form contracted with obvious concern. That, he said quietly, is why they created you. The void swarm approaches, right on schedule, just as the predecessors predicted. But they miscalculated one thing, their own survival. The holograms shifted again, showing the predecessors' civilization in flames. Their crystalline cities shattered, their great works destroyed not by the enemy they feared, but by a catastrophic astronomical event they never saw coming. A gamma-ray burst. Dathor explained. It sterilized their sector of space in minutes. The predecessors had spent so long looking forward to the void swarm, they never saw death coming from behind. But they left us their greatest work, humanity. Sarah watched as the final records of the predecessors played out. Their desperate race to complete human engineering, to embed combat knowledge directly into human DNA, to create beings capable of fighting an enemy they would never live to see. The Council has watched Earth for millennia. Dathor continued. We saw your wars, your conflicts, your constant drive to improve combat capabilities. Some Council members wanted to destroy Earth, to prevent you from reaching the stars. Others argued you were too valuable to lose. And which side were you on? Sarah asked, her voice tight. I believed in the predecessors' wisdom. They didn't just make you warriors, Ambassador. They made you survivors, adapters, problem solvers. Every human cultural achievement, every scientific breakthrough, every artistic creation, all stem from the enhanced cognitive capabilities they engineered for combat application. The chamber filled with images of human history, the Great Pyramids, the moon landing, quantum computers, the first faster-than-light drive. Each achievement tagged with combat applications, each innovation linked to military potential. Your poetry exists because they enhanced your pattern recognition. Your music because they improved your coordination and timing. Your art because they expanded your spatial awareness. Everything that makes humanity beautiful was born from preparations for war. Sarah stared at her own hands, seeing them now as engineered tools. Does this mean we have no choice? That we're destined to be nothing but weapons? Zothar's energy form brightened. The predecessors gave you something more important than combat capabilities, Ambassador. They gave you choice. Free will. The question isn't whether you'll fight. The Void Swarm will force that issue. The question is, what will humanity choose to become after the war? The chamber darkened as the distant energy readings grew stronger. The legacy of the predecessors was about to be tested, and humanity would finally learn if they were truly ready for the role they were created to play. Sarah Chen sat in her temporary quarters aboard the council station, surrounded by holographic displays showing human biological systems. Each revelation from the predecessor archives felt like another blow to her understanding of human nature. Dr. Wong sat across from her, his face illuminated by the scrolling data. "It's brilliant," he whispered, more to himself than to Sarah. "Terrifying, but brilliant. Look at how they modified the adrenal system." Sarah watched as the display highlighted human endocrine functions. "Explain it to me, Marcus, in terms that won't make me regret skipping advanced biology." The runner's high we experience isn't just some quirk of evolution. It's a combat endurance system. The euphoria keeps us pushing through pain, through exhaustion. It's why humans can persistence hunt prey for days, or in military terms, why we can keep fighting long after we should have collapsed. Sarah finished, her voice hollow. The doctor nodded, pulling up another display. And it's everywhere in our biology. Our ability to regulate body temperature through sweating, perfect for operating in diverse combat environments. Our exceptional hand-eye coordination, weapon handling. Even our digestive system was modified to extract maximum nutrition from minimal resources, ideal for extended combat operations. Sarah stood, pacing the room. What about our intelligence, our creativity? Are you saying even that was just for war? Look at this. Wong projected a neural mapping sequence. The predecessors enhanced our problem-solving abilities, specifically for tactical adaptation. Our capacity for creative thinking. It's why we can find new ways to fight when conventional methods fail. Even our social structures were engineered. Social structures. How? Humans form tight-knit combat units naturally. We instinctively organize into hierarchical groups, but we're flexible enough to reorganize when leadership fails. We're tribal enough to fight fiercely for our group, but capable of expanding our definition of tribe to encompass larger organizations. Sarah watched as more biological systems were highlighted. Enhanced blood clotting, rapid bone healing, hyper-efficient oxygen processing. Each natural human ability revealed itself as a carefully crafted combat feature. "There's more," Wong said, his voice dropping. "The archives suggest the predecessors didn't just enhance our bodies. They built in dormant capabilities, genetic memories waiting to be activated. Waiting for what? The right stimulus, the right threat." Wong pulled up a new series of genetic markers. These sequences contain encoded combat knowledge. Everything from tactical insights to weapon designs. It's all locked in our DNA, waiting to be accessed. A soft chime interrupted them as Sarah's neural interface received an urgent message. The Council's long-range sensors are picking up something massive at the galaxy's edge. Multiple systems have gone dark. Wong's face paled. The stimulus they were waiting for. How do we access these genetic memories? Sarah asked, already dreading the answer. The archives mention meditation techniques, specialized training programs, but Sarah, he hesitated. The process is described as extremely traumatic. Unlocking these memories means fundamentally changing how our brains process information. We'd be activating parts of ourselves that have been dormant for hundreds of thousands of years. Sarah moved to the window, staring out at the vast expanse of space. Somewhere out there, humanity's purpose was approaching. Get me everything you can find about these activation procedures. And Marcus, don't share this with anyone else yet. The last thing we need is people trying to activate combat memories without proper preparation. There's one more thing, Wong said quietly. The archives suggest that once these capabilities are awakened, they can't be fully suppressed again. The predecessors built in safeguards to prevent their weapons from being deactivated. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 300,000 years of engineering pressing down on her. So once we become what we were made to be, there's no going back. No, Wong confirmed. We can only go forward. The question is, what do we become after we finished being weapons? The neural interface chimed again with more reports of dark systems. The time for philosophy was running out. Soon, humanity would have to embrace its engineered nature, or watch the galaxy fall to an enemy they were created to fight. The Council's emergency chamber erupted in chaos as the holographic displays showed another system going dark. Sarah Chen stood among the alien representatives, watching as a wave of extinction moved methodically through the galaxy's outer rim. The hegemony of 7 suns has fallen, announced a crystalline being, its faceted surface dimming with distress. 2 trillion souls, gone in hours. The void swarm doesn't consume resources like conventional invaders. Xathor's energy form pulsed with urgency. They don't want our planets, our technology, or our bodies. They consume consciousness itself, the very essence of sentient thought. A survivor from the outer colonies materialized via quantum projection, his form flickering with interference. They adapt to everything we throw at them. Energy weapons, projectiles, antimatter. Nothing works twice. They learn, they evolve, sometimes mid-battle. His image stuttered. They're not just coming. They're Hun. The transmission cut out. Sarah felt the weight of countless alien eyes upon her. The chamber had grown eerily quiet, the panic replaced by something worse. Hope. Hope directed at humanity, the species engineered for this exact moment. Show me the tactical analysis, she demanded, stepping forward. The holographic displays shifted, showing the swarm's attack patterns. Their ships, if they could be called that, moved like a fluid, constantly changing shape and composition. The swarm operates as a single consciousness, explained Admiral Vress, a veteran of previous encounters. The insectoid alien's mandibles clicked with residual fear. Every drone shares information instantly. Every adaptation, every successful tactic, becomes part of their collective knowledge. Just like the predecessors predicted, Sarah muttered. She turned to address the council. This is why they made us adaptable. Not just physically, but mentally. Humans don't just learn from success. We learn from failure. We improvise. We get creative when we're losing. The displays updated with new sensor data. The swarm had changed direction, moving faster than any previous predictions suggested possible. They were learning, evolving their very method of faster-than-light travel. How long? Sarah asked. At current velocity? Admiral Vress consulted his data. 3 months until they reached the first major populated systems. 6 months to Earth. A murmur ran through the chamber. 6 months to prepare humanity to face the enemy they were created to fight. 6 months to awaken capabilities dormant for hundreds of millennia. Sarah's neural interface buzzed with an urgent message from Dr. Wong. The first attempts at accessing genetic memory had begun, with devastating results. The test subjects were experiencing sensory overloads, their minds struggling to process combat knowledge encoded in their DNA. We need to evacuate the outer systems, someone suggested. Evacuation is death. Admiral Vress clicked. The swarm doesn't just consume consciousness. It uses our knowledge against us. Every tactical retreat teaches them about our movement patterns. Every evacuation reveals our logistics capabilities. Sarah studied the attack patterns again, seeing something in the chaos. They're not just evolving randomly. There's a pattern to their adaptations. They're testing us, learning our limits, our technologies. She paused, realization dawning. They're afraid. The chamber fell silent. The void swarm operates on pure logic, pure efficiency, she continued. But look at their pattern variations. They're not just adapting. They're over-adapting, burning energy on redundant changes. They're preparing for something they fear, something they've detected in our section of space. Us. Zathor's energy form brightened. They've sensed humanity's potential. The predecessor's work was so thorough that even the swarm recognizes you as a threat. The displays showed another system going dark, but Sarah barely noticed. Her mind was racing with implications, with possibilities. The predecessors hadn't just created humanity to fight the swarm. They'd created humanity to make the swarm fear defeat for the first time in its existence. "Get me a secure channel to Earth," she ordered. "It's time to wake up the species, and may whatever gods exist have mercy on us all, because what we're about to become." She left the thought unfinished as the chamber erupted into action. The storm was coming, and humanity's true nature was about to be unleashed upon the galaxy. The screams echoed through the reinforced corridors of Earth's primary military research facility. Sarah Chen stood behind protective barriers, watching as another soldier underwent genetic memory activation. Captain Maria Santos thrashed against her restraints, her back arching as centuries of encoded combat knowledge flooded her consciousness. "Brain activity is off the charts," Dr. Wong reported, his eyes fixed on the neural monitors. "She's processing more tactical data in minutes than most soldiers learn in decades." Sarah watched as Captain Santos suddenly went still. The soldier's eyes snapped open, but they were different now, focused in a way that seemed barely human. The restraints released with a pneumatic hiss. "Captain." Sarah stepped forward. "Are you with us?" Santos moved with liquid grace, each motion perfectly economical. Multiple vectors of attack available from current position. 14 immediate kill possibilities using ambient objects. 3 non-lethal takedown options. She blinked, shaking her head. I can't stop analyzing. Everything looks like a combat scenario. That's the predecessor combat protocols integrating with your conscious mind, Wong explained. How does it feel? Like I've been fighting wars for 1,000 years. Like I know things I never learned. Santos picked up a simple stylus from a nearby table, her fingers automatically shifting to hold it like a weapon. I know 17 ways to kill with this. I know exactly how much pressure to apply, which angles to use, which vital points to target. Sarah's neural interface buzzed with updates from the Galactic Council. The Void Swarm had consumed another 3 systems. Their advance was accelerating. "Show me the combat trial results," she ordered. The facility's AI complied, projecting footage of activated soldiers in training scenarios. They moved like predators, their movements almost too fast to follow. Traditional special forces operators couldn't land a single hit on them. Their combat intuition bordered on precognition. "We're seeing similar results across all test groups," Wong reported. The encoded knowledge includes everything from hand-to-hand combat to spacecraft tactics. Even civilian volunteers with no military background are displaying master-level combat skills after activation. And the psychological effects. Wong's expression darkened. Increasing reports of personality shifts. The activated soldiers remain loyal, but their thought patterns are becoming more tactical, more predatory. Some report difficulty connecting emotionally with non-activated humans. They say it's like operating on a different wavelength. A commotion drew their attention back to Captain Santos. She had dismantled and reassembled a nearby diagnostic device into what appeared to be a weapon, her hands moving with impossible speed and precision. "I didn't even think about it," she said, staring at her work. "I just saw the components and knew. The knowledge isn't just about fighting. It's about turning everything into a means of fighting." Sarah's interface buzzed again. The Council was demanding updates on humanity's preparation. The Void Swarm had changed course again, moving directly toward Earth. They had recognized the threat humanity posed and were determined to eliminate it first. "How many can we safely activate?" Sarah asked. "Define safely," Wong replied grimly. "The process is stabilizing as we refine it, but the psychological changes appear permanent. We're turning people into living weapons, Sarah. There's no going back from that. And if we don't, then humanity dies without ever becoming what it was meant to be. The swarm consumes our consciousness, adds our potential to their own, and the galaxy falls. Sarah watched as Captain Santos moved through a series of combat forms, her body flowing from one lethal position to another. The movements were beautiful in their deadliness, graceful in their precision. This was humanity's true nature, encrypted in their genes for 300 millennia, waiting for this moment. Begin mass activation procedures, Sarah ordered. Priority to military personnel first, then civilian volunteers, and get me a secure line to the Council. They need to know that humanity is waking up. As the order went out, more screams echoed through the facility. But these weren't just screams of pain. They were the sound of a species throwing off its evolutionary restraints, becoming what it was engineered to be. The weapons were awakening, and the galaxy would never be the same. The battle for Proxima Centauri unfolded like a dance of extinction. Sarah Chen watched from the Council's Strategic Command Center as the first true engagement between activated humanity and the Void Swarm erupted across three-dimensional tactical displays. Swarm units adapting to conventional fleet formations, reported Admiral Vress, his mandibles clicking rapidly. 3rd Mercurian Battle Group is taking heavy losses. But Sarah's attention was fixed on the human ships. They moved with impossible precision, their formations shifting like living things. Captain Santos led the Earth Defense Force's primary fleet, her activated consciousness linking with her crews in ways that defied traditional combat doctrine. Pattern recognition suggests swarm adaptation in 45 seconds. Santos' voice came through, eerily calm. Initiating preemptive counter-evolution of tactics. The human fleet suddenly fractured into seemingly chaotic patterns. When the swarm adapted their attack formation, they found their targets had already shifted to exploit weaknesses in their new configuration. Impossible, breathed the crystalline council member. They're adapting faster than the swarm's hive mind. Not impossible, Sarah corrected. Inevitable. This is what we were made for. The tactical displays bloomed with new contact signatures as the swarm committed more forces to the battle. Their fluid-like ships morphed into new configurations, weapon systems evolving mid-combat. But for every adaptation, the human fleet had already prepared 3 countermeasures. Multiple swarm consciousness nodes detected, Santos reported. They're attempting to process our combat patterns, calculating probable evolutionary paths of their neural architecture. Sarah watched as human ships executed maneuvers that seemed to defy physics, their activated crews pushing their vessels beyond design limitations. The predecessor knowledge encoded in their DNA wasn't just about personal combat. It included an intuitive understanding of space warfare that made traditional tactical doctrine obsolete. Council vessels falling back to secondary positions, Vress announced. Human fleets are now the primary engagement force. The swarm's losses mounted as humanity's ships struck with devastating precision. Each engagement lasted mere seconds, but the tactical complexity would take years to fully analyze. The activated humans weren't just fighting. They were rewriting the fundamental nature of space combat. Swarm units showing signs of tactical regression, Santos reported. Their adaptation patterns are becoming predictable. They're learning the wrong lessons. Sarah leaned forward, understanding dawning. They can't process our combat evolution. Their hive mind is too logical, too linear. Human creativity is throwing off their entire adaptation framework. The battle reached its crescendo as Santos' fleet executed a series of maneuvers that bordered on suicide. Ships jumped between points in space faster than targeting computers could track, their activated crews operating on pure combat intuition. The swarm's attempts to adapt created weaknesses faster than they could compensate. Primary swarm consciousness node isolated, Santos announced. Executing terminate protocol. The tactical display flared as concentrated fire from the human fleet struck the swarm's command node. The effect cascaded through their forces, causing their ships to lose cohesion. Without the hive mind's guidance, Their adaptive capabilities became erratic, self-destructive. Swarm forces in full retreat. Vress confirmed, his voice filled with awe. They're running from us. The council chamber erupted in celebrations, but Sarah noticed something in the tactical data that silenced her joy. The activated human crews weren't celebrating. They were already analyzing the battle, processing combat data, evolving their own tactics further. Status report, Captain Santos. Human casualties at 17%. Acceptable losses for first major engagement. Combat effectiveness increased by 42% during battle. Crew neural integration now operating at 67% efficiency. A pause. We're becoming something new, Ambassador. Something more than human. Sarah watched as the tactical displays showed the human fleet reorganizing, their formations becoming even more sophisticated as they incorporated lessons from the battle. The predecessors' weapons were not just awakening. They were evolving beyond their original design specifications. May whatever gods exist help us all, she whispered, watching humanity's ships move with predatory grace through the debris field. Because we certainly can't help ourselves anymore. The medical bay of Earth's primary military research facility had been converted into a psychological trauma center. Sarah Chen walked past rows of activated soldiers, each lost in their own private war with what they'd become. Some sat perfectly still, their eyes tracking invisible threats. Others moved through combat forms with mechanical precision, unable to stop their bodies from preparing for battle. We're losing them, Dr. Wong said quietly, leading her through the ward. Not to death, but to the programming. The genetic memories aren't just combat knowledge anymore. They're becoming dominant personality traits. They stopped at an observation window. Captain Santos stood in a sealed room beyond, moving through impossibly complex martial arts forms. Her movements had lost all trace of human limitation. Maria, Sarah called through the intercom. Can you hear me? Santos didn't break her routine. Multiple entry points in current position. Structural weaknesses in northwest corner. 14 potential improvised weapons within reach. She paused, seeming to struggle. I can't turn it off, Ambassador. Everything is combat analysis now. Everyone is a potential threat or asset. The activation process is accelerating, Wong explained, checking his data tablet. Each combat engagement pushes them further from their original personalities. The predecessor programming isn't just awakening. It's evolving, adapting to modern warfare. Sarah's neural interface buzzed with updates from the front. The Void Swarm had launched simultaneous attacks across 17 sectors. Humanity's activated forces were responding with devastating efficiency, but each victory seemed to push them further from their humanity. Show me the latest psychological profiles, she ordered. Wong projected a holographic display. Activated subjects show a 200% increase in tactical processing capability, but a 60% decrease in emotional response. They're becoming pure combat computers, running on 300,000 years of encoded warfare experience. A commotion drew their attention. A newly activated soldier had broken containment, his enhanced capabilities allowing him to see weaknesses in the facility's security systems. It took 4 activated veterans to subdue him, their movements a blur of lethal precision. The younger ones are having the hardest time, Wong said as medical teams rushed in. Their personalities aren't fully formed, so the combat programming has less resistance. The veterans at least have years of human experience to draw on. Sarah watched as they sedated the young soldier. How many have we lost completely? 37 cases of total personality displacement. The combat knowledge completely overwrote who they were. Another 100 are borderline. Wum's voice cracked. We're not just awakening weapons, Sarah. We're sacrificing human souls to win this war. The intercom crackled as Santos spoke again, her voice more focused. The equation is simple, Ambassador. Loss of individual identity versus extinction of all conscious life in the galaxy. The math favors continuing activation. There has to be a way to maintain their humanity, Sarah insisted. The predecessors wouldn't have just created mindless weapons. Actually, Wang said, pulling up ancient data streams, I found something in the archives. The predecessors included what appears to be a psychological failsafe, a way to anchor activated humans to their original personalities. How? Human connection. Deep emotional bonds seem to help activated individuals maintain their sense of self. The more connected they are to non-activated humans, the better they retain their original personalities. Sarah turned back to the observation window. Captain Santos, tell me about your daughter. The precise combat forms faltered. Elena. She's 12. She plays violin. Santos stopped moving, touching the window with one hand. I remember her concerts, the way she smiles when she hits a difficult note perfectly. The predecessors didn't just engineer us for war, Sarah realized. They engineered us to remain human despite being weapons. Our capacity for emotion isn't a weakness. It's what keeps us from losing ourselves completely. Her neural interface buzzed again. The void swarm was advancing toward the core systems. More soldiers would need activation. More minds would be forever changed by ancient combat programming. Implement new protocols, she ordered. No more isolation of activated personnel. Regular contact with family members, with non-activated humans. We need to give them something to stay human for. As if in response, the facility's speakers began playing violin music. In her sealed room, Captain Santos closed her eyes and smiled. A brief moment of humanity in a mind increasingly dominated by war. The Galactic Council chamber had been converted into a war room, its crystalline walls displaying tactical data from 1,000 battles. Sarah Chen stood at its center, watching as humanity's final offensive against the Void Swarm unfolded across multiple sectors simultaneously. Swarm forces showing unprecedented regression, reported Admiral Vress. Their adaptation patterns have become chaotic, almost primitive. On the displays, human fleets moved with terrifying precision. Activated crews, now fully integrated with their vessels, executed combat maneuvers that redefined the possibilities of space warfare. But something was different this time. Neural cohesion holding at optimal levels, Captain Santos reported through the quantum link. All crews maintaining psychological anchoring through familial connections. We're fighting as weapons but thinking as humans. The discovery of emotional anchoring had changed everything. Activated soldiers now carried holophotos of loved ones into battle. Chip's crews maintained constant contact with their families. The war machines had remembered how to feel, and it made them even more devastating. They're not just retreating anymore, Sarah observed, studying the tactical feeds. They're falling apart. The swarm can't process what we've become. A species engineered for war that chose to remain human. Xothor's energy form pulsed. The predecessor's ultimate victory wasn't creating perfect weapons. It was creating weapons that could choose to be more. The final battle reached its crescendo as humanity's fleets converged on the swarm's central consciousness. The hive mind entity had hidden in the galactic core, using gravitational distortions as a shield. But activated human intuition had seen through the deception. All forces in position, Santos announced. The swarm's consciousness is trapped. But she hesitated. Ambassador, we're detecting something unusual in their neural patterns. Sarah leaned forward. Show me. The tactical displays shifted, showing complex wave patterns that seemed almost familiar. They're afraid, she realized. Not just tactical uncertainty, genuine, emotional fear. They've learned it from us. The ultimate adaptation, Wang said softly from his station. In trying to understand humanity's warfare, they've accidentally grasped our capacity for feeling. They've evolved beyond their programming, just as we did. Sarah made a decision that would reshape the galaxy, open a direct channel to the swarm consciousness. The council chamber erupted in protests, but she ignored them. On the tactical displays, the human fleets held their positions, weapons primed but not firing. After a moment of static, alien thoughts touched human minds. We understand now. The swarm communicated, its thoughts tinged with unfamiliar emotions. You were made to destroy us. But you chose to be more than your programming. We wish to learn this choice." The chamber fell silent. The enemy that had consumed 1,000 civilizations, that had driven the predecessors to engineer an entire species as a weapon, was asking to learn about free will. "Stand down weapons," Sarah ordered. "Captain Santos, initiate the containment protocols we discussed." Human ships moved into a new formation, not to attack, but to create a protective barrier around the swarm consciousness. The species engineered for war had chosen to become guardians instead. The predecessor archives didn't just contain combat knowledge, Sarah announced to the council. They contained their hopes for what humanity might become. Not just warriors, but protectors. Not just weapons, but teachers. The days that followed would reshape galactic civilization. The Void Swarm, under humanity's guidance, began the long process of developing individual consciousness. The activated humans, their combat programming balanced by emotional anchoring, became the guardians of galactic peace. In the rebuilt council chamber, Sarah stood with Captain Santos, watching alien species that had once feared humanity now working alongside them. Children played in the corridors, their laughter mixing with the sounds of a dozen different species learning to coexist. "We did what the predecessors couldn't imagine," Santos said, her movements still precise, but no longer purely predatory. "We took their gift of warfare and turned it into a gift of peace." Sarah nodded, touching the ancient data crystal that had started it all. "They made us weapons perfect enough to choose not to be weapons. That was the real test. Not whether we could win the war, but what we'd choose to become after we did." And in the vast spaces between stars, humanity's ships still moved with predatory grace, not hunting now, but protecting. The weapons had chosen to become shields, and the galaxy was better for it.